You're listening to Kicking It with the Coves. Do you have a problem with it?
No, Sensei!
I mean, no, Dad.
No, Dad.
What's up, guys? Jesse Cove. I got my dad, Martin Cove, sitting next to me, my sister, Rachel Cove. You're listening to Kicking It with the Coves. We have an unbelievable episode today. We've got the writers, creators, and producers of Cobra Kai in the studio with us. Jon Hurwitz, Hayden Schlossberg, and Josh Heald. I'm literally sitting across from geniuses right now. And here we are.
They are my idols. They are not geniuses. They are my idols.
Yes, they're idols.
I think you're the world's idols at this point, honestly.
We can't thank you guys enough for being here. I mean, it's just, we know how busy you guys are, and just thank you for making the time.
Well, we're scared of your dad.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Yeah, welcome to our world.
That's very funny.
One of the things that I thought would be so amazing is, I mean, obviously everybody knows you guys from, I mean, right now Cobra Kai. I mean, it's just so big. I mean, and obviously, you know, season 4 became #1 show in the world, which is unbelievable. First off, I mean, questions people always ask. I mean, one, I would love to talk about the inception of where this idea even came from. Like, was it someone in this room's idea? Was it Billy or Ralph? I mean, where did that happen?
It was all of us for many, many years. It started back in high school, having the obsession, not just with the Karate Kid. All of us were obsessed with the Karate Kid in our youth. But in high school, a big part of it was like being obsessed with Billy Zabka while we were in high school. Like, not just from Karate Kid, but every movie he did in the 80s that he played this asshole. We nicknamed him 80s asshole back then. And we would talk about him all the time. We were fans of him. We're comedy guys first and foremost. So there was like this comedic element of this guy is playing this similar kind of character. And then as we got older, and we all bonded, you know, Hayden and I are friends from high school. We met Josh our freshman year in college, and we've all been really close ever since. And, you know, when we all moved out to LA, Hayden and I lived together. Josh moved a year later here. He lived a block away, and every day we'd write during the day, and at night we'd watch movies. And there was like a new DVD came out of Karate Kid. It was like a new edition, and it had all this behind the scenes stuff. And we saw interviews in there. And one of the interviews that Billy had, he was talking about his perspective of like, he never viewed himself as a bully in the movie. He never viewed himself as the villain in any sort of way. He's like, I'm just another kid in the school. I say at the beginning, I have a year to make it work. I'm trying to turn over a new leaf. I have a girlfriend who I love, who I'm trying to reconnect with. And then this guy moves to town and moves in, and conflict starts. So in his mind, he was never a bully. And it got us talking about, you know, the kids, the bullies from our high school, and what we didn't know about them or what was going on in their world. So we started talking, this was probably 2001, 2002, about doing a movie called Cobra Kai, which would follow, you know, what happens to a bully later in life, or a perceived bully, and peel the layers behind, you know, peel the layers of Johnny Lawrence's life. And then years go by, and, you know, it felt like it was impossible to get made. You know, we knew the studio system. It's hard to get a movie through there. And, you know, streaming shows start happening. We see billboards for Fuller House, and we're like, okay, like, that was a big thing from our youth. And we see Kimmy Gibbler on a billboard, and we're like, okay, like, you're able to, like, bring back characters that were popular and shows that were popular in ways, and we could do it in this long-form format, and it became so much more than what that initial movie was. I mean, we started to talk about it as generations of Karate Kids and the rivalry between them, and how and the history of Cobra Kai and the history of Miyagi-Do, and there were so many themes that it all kind of came together for us.
Did you think about all of this early on when you first were conceiving a Karate Kid movie?
No.
The Miyagi-Do, the Eagle Fang, all this stuff.
I mean, in broad terms, but we didn't know what Eagle Fang was called. We didn't, you know, necessarily know the minutia of how it would develop. But we had, in the early days, like, you know, 20 years ago, we thought about this really as a character piece. It would be great to dive into the psyche of somebody who was a bully in high school and was, you know, paying the price for it in life. So we kind of had the archetype for who Johnny Lawrence is at the top of this series, and how that contrasts with somebody like Daniel, who learned a really valuable lesson in high school of having the right mentors, the right mental fortitude, and it just kind of put this, you know, yin and yang idea in our minds in terms of, you know, bad teacher, good teacher, and what that does for you. when we looked at the, breaking apart the egg of what makes a Karate Kid movie work, there was that relationship between the generational relationship between Miyagi and Daniel. So we knew we wanted to do something with Johnny having an unexpected relationship with a kid. But you have to. It was just one step at a time. It's like you start looking at that relationship, and you're like, well, Johnny's not going to be a Mr. Miyagi, willingly, because he doesn't have that kind of attitude. He's not looking to be generous. He's looking to get the kid from don't get beat up on my car, go get beat up over there. So it was finding those moments of how does he stumble into this accidental sensei relationship, and what happens as a result of that. And like very easily the dots of that first season were connected. Oh, he's going to turn this kid into a powerhouse. What's that going to do for this kid? He's going to get wish fulfillment. He's going to get, a girlfriend. He's going to beat the bully. He's going to lift his social stature. What's going to happen to Johnny? He's going to develop an enemy. What's going to happen when you start, coming out of the shadows? You're going to invite somebody like Kreese to like find you and step back into your life. So the more that conversation turned from theoretical to how can we actually make this as a show, that first season poured out of us. Before we even pitched the show, we pitched the entire first season when we were selling it. And we knew generally what the second season was going to be, because now Daniel was firmly back in the game, and you were going to have this dojo versus dojo kind of idea. After that, we have kind of certain fence posts in terms of where we've already been and where we're going that we always knew would be there. But the coloring in of seasons from, the first half of the season is about this, the second half is about that. A lot of that, really, we need to kind of think about year to year in terms of now that the tree has grown and we have all these branches, how can we, make sure that they're still growing as a tree and not just, becoming endless ivy.
It's like a forest now.
Yeah.
I remember the two things with the first season that we thought of that I was like, gave me like, this is a real show, was the Robbie character, like our midpoint of the show was Johnny's, the son sort of saying like, what, screw you, Dad. I'm going to make my dad angry by going to Daniel LaRusso. And what it did was it created this thing where suddenly Daniel LaRusso is teaching Johnny's son in a way that he doesn't know. So we didn't make it where suddenly Daniel LaRusso, everybody, who watches Cobra Kai now, has more, negative feelings about Daniel than they did before. But really, it's just because you're rooting for Johnny so much more now. Like, we didn't want Daniel to suddenly be this jerk who didn't listen to what Miyagi had to say. So it gave an opportunity for him to, I get to be Mr. Miyagi again to this kid. But we know in the soap opera audience that, like, if Johnny were to find out, it would be World War III, which it does. And then the other thing was saving Sensei Kreese for the very end of the season. We were like, okay, well, why is Johnny the way he is? What makes the bully the bully? It's the home life. It's this, and finding out that Kreese was, his kind of mentor, and that it was a mentor who let him down and set him down a wrong path. And, we would play with the psychology of that the whole season, but then like, boom, at the end of the season, Daddy's back. And that we know, like, as fans, we'd be like, well, I want to see season 2 now. Yes. And then we had a show. Yeah. And so when we pitched it to, all around town, and end up at YouTube, that was always the thing. We pitched them this soap opera that, like, okay, we're going in, we're meeting Johnny, and then, you're seeing Daniel from Johnny's perspective, and he's just like the guy who had it made, who's living the golden life. And then we have the complication of Robbie now training him, and Robbie and Miguel having their own, like, with Samantha, their own Romeo and Juliet thing happening. But it was like, with Kreese coming in at the end, it was like, okay, this is what season 2 is. That's what they always want to know. Like, where is the show going?
We were so excited about that. I know you were less excited when we first told you. Oh my God. but we were excited, and I think it worked out.
No, I talked about it today. I always talk about it on the interviews, how I would go in there and say, I don't want to play him. We sat at Dan Tana's, and I don't want to play it one-dimensional. Do you guys have plans of writing him with some vulnerability and texture? I said, it's just more fun to play. And you did. And I always talk about because these questions come up all the time in the interviews. And I say, You know, I went there with. Do you remember the second restaurant to plan the second season or plan the third season? I had my yellow
Yes.
pad.
Yes.
I had
Was
my
it the
notes.
grill on
The grill on the
Oh my
alley.
God.
Right. And I talked to mercenaries. I talked to his friend Josh, who's an Army Ranger. I talked to all these soldiers of fortune. I had my notes. And then I never even got a chance, Rachel. I never got a chance to even read my notes because you guys told me what you were going to do with the character for the coming season. And it was exactly what I wanted to do.
Yes.
You know, it was the whole background, the whole thing. And to me, I mean, it fortified what you did in Dantana's. You did write the character with, in this season 2, a little bit of texture, you know, but it wasn't a lot. We kept him as a villain because you guys like to write me as the villain. You did, you know.
But we like to write you every way now. Like, I mean, you've seen as the show has gone on, you know, delving into your past and, you know, having your real life son, you know, bullying you.
Right,
Which was unbelievable. You guys. That was like,
which was the
yeah.
greatest. But just being able to explore the layers of all these characters, you know, we love doing it with your character and every character from the original movies, whether it's, you know, Johnny was the first one up and then it became, you know, Daniel as well. We've seen the different you know, levels that he deals with in his adult life. But, you know, as the seasons have gone on and you have Chosen show up and you have Terry Silver and, Ali and like and different characters are showing up, we're always thinking about, okay, where could they be now? Where would they be now? What's interesting about how they fit into the, you know, this group. And
do you do it openly? Do you actually discuss it? That's what I'm saying. The perception the three of you have. I've worked with some really good writers, and those writers on Cagney and Lacey were flawless. But you guys have a perception of where the character would be 6 months, 8 months, 2 years down the line. Does that come by chatting, or does that come by just instinct and an idea, and it's better than anybody else's idea?
We have a lot of instincts just from never stopping talking with each other. I mean, we've known each other so long. I mean, the guys and I go back, 25, 26 years at this point. And we've, been working on this show together since we started as the only thing we do every day. We have a lot of other things we're working on now, but this is, the mothership. And we never stop talking about it. And we always look at every relationship and every character who comes back from the original franchise as an opportunity to tell the story that you expect and also tell an honest story about what may have happened. And some people have a relationship with the past that's difficult and that is full of resentment and regret. And some people have a relationship with the past that is, I've healed and I've, grown stronger. And some people have a relationship of embarrassment, and it's always great to kind of pick a lane with different characters, so we're not just playing, the same note. With Kreese, we very early on leaned into the idea of an old dog, and it's really tough to teach an old dog new tricks, and then start to peel back rather than like teach him new tricks right away. Peel back the onion and start saying like, okay, why is this particular old dog tough to teach a new trick to? And it's some of that stuff that happened in his youth, and then creep up on things like the relationship with Tori, and you think it's going to be a Johnny Lawrence relationship again, where here's this kid who's looking up to the mentor and is looking for guidance and is just saying yes sir to everything. And I think we've seen over a couple of seasons Kreese falling into this less of a sensei and more of a grandfatherly relationship with this young woman in a way that's starting to soften Kreese without him even realizing it, and for the better. And some of that stuff is like, that's our favorite thing to do, is to not be dishonest with a character and say we're going to take them from unwoke to woke, and we're going to get there over the course of 5 episodes or 10 episodes. Like we do a lot of this. We do a lot of stretching the story out over a lot of seasons. To the arc is more fun if it doesn't get all the way to where it's going too fast. Sometimes you want to see the slow burn.
The restraint is fascinating to me because I've tried to write. I've been trying to write a Western for God knows how long, and
5 years.
Really, I have.
remember
I
when I
bought
was
computers.
6.
But the thing is, this kind of discipline to wait for that arc, if it's not quite ready to come all the way down, like the wave is not quite ready to break onto the beach, and you just, that to me is the fascinating thing about writing, is that to know when the restraint comes about with the character, not go, even though we're all excited to have him do X or Y, we got to keep him at M and N. To me, that's why, to me, it was always Robert Kamen who was the star of Karate Kid 1. Yeah. It wasn't Miyagi and Ralph that he says they're the star. It was always, we say sweep the leg, no mercy, wax on, wax off. 35 years later.
Well, it's going back to the Karate Kid. One of the reasons why we and people all over the world connected so much to that movie, there's the themes and all that, but it's the storytelling. It's most of us who watched that movie the first time didn't know that Miyagi's teaching Daniel karate. So the moment when you realize, wait a second, this whole time with the chores, this whole thing, it's genius. And that's one of those things that there's a certain element of we're seeing these moments, and where you have to be enjoying the moments as they are and then be building for the payoff. And that's the thing that in our entire careers, we've loved the setup and the payoff, and we care about audience reaction. We're always thinking about okay, what are these big moments? What are the big turning points? And where are the moments where the huge laughs or them crying or blowing their mind? And that's a big part.
Well, yeah, I mean, what if, Daniel got beat up on the beach and, saw Miyagi the next morning? He was like, what's wrong? I got beat up on the beach. Oh, well, I know karate. Why don't you come over and I'll teach you a few things? That's, how'd you like that movie you saw? Oh, yeah, I don't know. This handyman taught this kid some karate. And he beat up some guys. But because, it really snuck up on it, and Miyagi's watching him, and he's getting invested, and, maybe he doesn't, want to get involved in this family drama, and he has this strained relationship with his mother, and, it gets to this place where Daniel really is at, he's been thrown down a cliff, he's been beat up, he's been pummeled against a fence, and that moment that, Miyagi steps in to kind of save his ass, even then, Miyagi's not saying I'll train you. It's really getting to the, that point of that sacred pact. And like John said, you're not getting to karate right after that. It's more restraint. It's more of Miyagi doing it his way, and Daniel getting frustrated now. And he's like, I don't get frustrated enough getting my ass kicked. Now I have to come here and wash all your cars. So the moment the payoff happens, it washes over you in such a way that it's the greatest movie you've ever seen.
And Robert is he understands storytelling on a very deep level, in terms of a hero's journey. Joseph Campbell wrote Hero of a Thousand Faces, and I see that influence now watching the movie, and your character is just pure, is a nightmare for kids, and there's a lot of comparisons and overlap, I think, between Star Wars and Karate Kid. It's white versus black. It's good. There's good and evil there, and obviously on Cobra Kai we try to find the gray more, but in that movie, you're in black. You're the Death Star, and it's scary. And jumping back to Dan Tana's, because the more I think about things, it's we talk about understanding what makes a bully a bully. I'm also thinking that there's a part of it that's we're trying to untraumatize our childhood selves by being he's not that bad, and seeing the fun behind the evil face and everything. But it's I think about the meetings that we had with Billy and Ralph and you, and each one was a different type of thing. Billy's was the easiest. It's you're going in and it's okay, we're going to going through the Johnny perspective and do all this, and basically everything that he said in that DVD. With Ralph, it was okay, we're going through the Johnny perspective. You're not going to be the bad guy in this, you're going to be you, but it is going to be a different thing, and we knew that would be an adjustment for him. And so when we got to that meeting, we had all that thought, and we flew out to New York for that one, and it was a big deal because we knew if you didn't have him on board, you didn't have the show. By the time we had our meeting at Dan Tana's with you, we're okay, this is gonna be scary because you're coming.
It was the most fun meeting ever.
Well, we're already scared of you, and we're telling you you can't come in until the end.
Exciting. Each meeting is exciting though too, because you guys are these were movies that we grew up loving. So there's this part of us that's super excited as fans, and then also a little bit nervous because we know it's there's going to be this show. It's going to, there's going to be promotion. And we knew you at the time, we're in the Cobra Kai world of, fandom and stuff like that. And so we knew it would be very difficult to just sit back and watch a show happen and promotions and stuff like that. And then like not say I'm in it at the very end.
It's really interesting. So I work in the mental health field. So when you say, unpack or redo the trauma, right? I'm working with people with severe trauma, and I get to watch the impact of this show with people. And that's why you guys are such geniuses, because in the movie, we never got to see the many layers of John Kreese. We never got to see the development of a bully. And that's why I love this, because you get to see that are bullies bad, or were they bullied themselves?
I think that comes with the maturity of us as we got older.
Yeah.
I think part of it, because we all have a long history together, and we all had our experiences in our youth where you felt bullied, and then there's the moments when you were a bully.
Yes.
In a certain way, and it's not, and you look at those moments, like when I look at like the Anthony LaRusso storyline in season 4 was something that when we were in the writers' room, it was really important to us to make it where it's like, oh, Anthony's not just, hey, he's the bad kid. It's like, no, like this is a kid, like we see his parents, we see he's got a loving sort of center there, but he's entitled, he has certain issues there, he's growing up with a group of kids, and it's not just like, okay, I'm just going to be a jerk to somebody. It's, some of the elements of like he has a crush on a girl and there's some competitiveness. There's the peer pressure of you're in a group of friends and you want to look cool and they kind of bully you a little bit, which makes you feel like, oh, I'm going to get laughs by doing this. These were all things that like a lot of kids go through. So
yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because 3 questions that I ask the groups I do is raise your hand, okay? And close your eyes, because sometimes these are really tough questions, right? I ask, have you ever been a bully? Have you ever been bullied? Or have you ever watched bullying? Every single one of them raises their hand. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, all of us.
So I think that's what's so beautiful about what you're doing, is you get to see, like, we all have these many layers.
And it's like, when I think about bullying, it's like, you have a kid brother, which I do, and that's not like I was a nightmare older brother, but like I'm sure there were times, and it's like having control.
Sure.
It's being able to exert control over somebody. That,
well, it's also, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's like I see with my kids. We were talking about earlier, just baseball. Like I see my kids like in the dugout, and with their team, someone knocks someone's hat off, and it could be something as simple as that, and that person who knocked it off gets a laugh from the other teammates. So the kid who got his hat knocked off is now feeling like crap. And, he's trying to get that high that the other people seem to be on, so he's going to pay it forward, and he's going to maybe knock someone else's hat off and give them a shove. And, you're finding you're trying to get to that place where you're not the one getting shoved down.
Yeah,
and it can happen very quickly.
I was going to say, the thing I like about Karate Kid and Cobra Kai, though, is it's geared towards giving solutions to the bullied.
Yes.
Rather than, how do we cure bullying, which I'm not saying is not a worthwhile thing, but there's a whole crop of new, like, asshole kids that are coming up every year that don't know, that are amoral yet because they haven't learned right from wrong, and they're flipping caps. So like there's always going to be some degree of like kids doing the wrong thing. And in the movies and in the show, karate is the thing that gives you the magic to fight back, but it's the lessons beyond it, and it's the thing that you wish you could tell yourself in elementary school and junior high or whatever. Is like somebody comes up to you. I always say, like, if now I'm in my 40s, if I'm in an elevator with somebody and they're like, "You're ugly," I'm like, who the hell is this person? What's wrong with you that you would just randomly just say I'm ugly right now? Like, what are your issues?
I apologized for that earlier.
But
I saw that.
Your parents hate you. Like, those are the things kids say, and you come home like just feeling like, what did I do wrong? Why am I ugly? Why am I this? And you want to tell your younger self that, like, this is just, that's them. They have their issue over there. It's so tough, but
that's what I tell my kids all the time when that stuff happens. I was just like, I know how hard it is to like have someone say something to you and you want to get into a fight or you want to say something terrible to them. But remember, like, it's not about you. Like, they're hurting. Something's going on with them. Something, they woke up on the wrong side of the bed today, or something is, happening worse inside their brain or inside their household. And try to always remember that, because it's really, when something is said that's terrible to you, that feels unmotivated, it's usually not about you. And if you can try to remember that, it's hard when you're 8, 9, 10, 11, but as you get older, I think we kind of, need to remember that more.
Well, it's interesting because developmentally, a child gets their sense of security from 0 to 8. They get it from their parents. From 8 to 18, they're seeking it out through their peers. So that's why I love what you guys are doing with the show, because I remember when and people think like I'm a fan of the show just because my dad's on it. I'm obsessed with Cobra Kai just as an audience member. Like, I can't put it down. But that scene where Aisha got I broke down crying for her. Like, when and I think kids need to see the impact that they have on each other. Yes. Like, now it's social media.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's the thing. You know, we have different kinds of bullied kids and different kinds of bullies on the show. And there are those times where we write these scenes that, like, we know you're writing it and the audience is going to feel in a major way about it. And sometimes it's painful to film those scenes, and it's painful to even write those scenes. But, you know, it's part of this bigger story that it's important to have the audience see an impact on the other side of when you're bullying somebody, like what the impact can be on the other side. And then it's, you know, like Hayden was saying, it's like, you know, our show is like exploring, like, well, what are the solutions? What are, like, if you're being bullied, you know, there's Miyagi-Do and there's the Cobra Kai reaction to it. And, you know, I think as you've seen on the show, as it's gone on, you know, certain characters are learning a little bit of everything, and to educate yourself in how to, you know, have all these different tools in your box to be able to react to life's challenges. Sometimes you need, Miyagi-Do. A lot of times you'll need some Miyagi-Do, but sometimes you need a little bit of Cobra Kai. And it's finding those moments where you should stick up for yourself in ways that, you know, are maybe a little bit rougher around the edges.
Do you guys feel like you? Sorry, I mean, do you guys feel like you feel the impact that you've had on children around the world and, like, people who watch the show, and also the responsibility that you've kind of created for yourselves, because, like, the show literally, you know, it's watched around the world and you impact children everywhere. So, like you were saying, when you put the pen down on the paper, like, this is like a huge thing I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, we feel it on social media every single day. There's always, you know, somebody telling a story or reaching out to us, you know, about, you know, this was my experience, this was my kid's experience. And it's usually not just, you know, from a kid's perspective and not just from an adult's perspective. It's from a family's perspective. That's what's amazing with the show, that I don't think we, you know, could have predicted. We were kind of doing it unintentionally. And then when you look back, you're like, oh, that makes sense. That, like, these families are watching the show together. And it's, you know, fathers and mothers and sons and daughters all kind of experiencing these stories together from the perspective of, I lived through that, and now you're going through that. And they're having these conversations about, you know, what kids might be going through at school, or having confidence issues, or feeling like, you know, my life didn't go the direction it went, and I think that, you know, I don't have any choice but to continue going down that hole. And you get it bombarded at you. You know, the show blew up during, you know, the pandemic, so a lot of it has really been online. But now that, you know, we've been able to, you know, thankfully start stepping into the world a little bit more, you just see it more. Like, you know, you hear it more. Just the more, you know, I'm socializing with other parents at, you know, my kid's school. You know, you're just hearing, like, you know, why we as a family love this show and what it, you know, has meant to us, and it's not something we take for granted, and it's not like, ha ha ha, they fell for our trick. Like, it really did happen, like, organically and earnestly.
It's really interesting, and I love that you said that, because it did blow up so quickly, and I feel like that's also overwhelming.
You know, it's interesting because I think from the beginning, when it was on YouTube, like, we saw the numbers on YouTube. It was doing well. People were watching it, but in our everyday lives, you know, it wasn't like, you know, we go to our kids' schools and all the parents and all the kids know the show and are watching it. And, you know, you'd have a lot of people who had heard of the show or pretended to have seen it, but you knew that they hadn't. And then it was, you know, the moment it was on Netflix, it was just like overnight. It was instantaneous.
Flick of a switch. Yeah.
And that rollout was like literally, it was so perfect, because you had season 1 and then season 2, and then before season 3 was released, people got to watch season 1 and 2 on Netflix, which is like, doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
So like, you enrolled people with like a sledgehammer, and then season 3 was released, and everybody was so gung-ho about it. I mean, it was like a perfect storm.
They're giants, you know, and it's Broadway for a play or a musical. It's an amazing, that their platform can take anything, you know, and if it works on an audience, you know, it can catch fire.
It's funny that you earlier mentioned the Star Wars piece with the Karate Kid, because often, and people have been coming up to me about my dad my whole life, and people always say it was John Kreese, Freddy Krueger, did I say that right?
Yeah.
And Darth Vader.
Yes.
And so I'm curious for you guys, what was it like knowing that he's like super sweet and silly
It's the best.
and funny? And
yeah,
like, people
You know
don't
he's
get to
got
see
gifts
that
for you.
side.
You know there's gifts.
It's literally the best. So when we had that first dinner, we went in there. We had some nerves, but I remember the two of us shared a chicken parm and a steak.
Which,
Yeah,
by the way, Dabney Coleman,
Dabney
who's one
Coleman.
of our favorite actors.
Yes.
And Jerry Weintraub,
Who produced
the producer.
the
food
food
is
Karate
named
Kid. They were
after-
the foods were named. So it was fun. We had a Dabney and a Jerry Weintraub, and I remember like we were all talking about like it was amazing to like Sensei Kreese is here and you're like sharing meals with him like immediately. So there's that. And then there's just sort of like the warmth, and like we knew, I mean, we had seen interviews with you before then. We knew your personality to some degree, but experiencing it in person and seeing like what a family man you are, how you're comedy forward. You're joking around all the time. Like everyone on set loves Marty. They love you just get a smile on your
He's
face. And he's joking. He's
gregarious.
gregarious. He jokes.
Blunt.
Well, blunt, but
Intense.
But like,
Yeah, but,
bringing,
yeah.
I'll just say bringing in the fun, and you know, there's a fun energy that Marty brings that everybody, you know, is generally liking. I mean, everybody, you know, on our show, there's times where everybody's, you know, there's moments where it's tough, you know, and everybody goes through that. But there's a lot of comedy, and yeah, so right from the very beginning, you know, he's got a great smile. It's, you know, he didn't smile at all. I mean, if he smiled, it was a devil smile.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
in the movie. It was,
I looked at
you
that.
don't want Kreese
There's
to
one
smile
moment.
at you.
I think there's one moment where you
There's one,
smile.
I watched because I was watching at the very beginning.
It's like, you're a pushy little bastard,
Yeah,
ain't you?
that's it. That's the only moment.
When he smiles, you're about to kill. It's like you're about to die.
I like that. I like that.
Exactly.
There's like 2 moments.
That's it. Yeah.
I was looking. I remember one day go fast forwarding, trying to see when I did smile through Karate Kid 1 and 2 and 3, and there wasn't really any. And he was never exuberant if his kids won, and he was pissed if his kids lost. And I kept saying, what have I've created a neutrality here. I've created someone who has no emotions whatsoever. I don't know where it came from. It just seemed very right. And John never wanted me to smile, but I never thought about it. If I would smile, I'd smile organically. But it's, you know, it just fit in. I think it was just the right material that made all that work.
Well, Robert made the character such a drill sergeant, such a military guy, and then you had these bullies that were scary to a kid. From Billy Zabka, Chad McQueen. I mean, they were just these little badass kids,
Right.
And then you're the one screaming at them. You're like the queen,
exactly.
the king alien that we all have to kill, and in order to save the
course,
world. I
of
mean,
course.
it was, and like you said, but the thing is with Freddy Krueger and with he's covered in makeup, and Darth Vader's got a mask. It's Marty's face is the face of nightmares, and so
Just a
His
little
face is
cloth.
right here,
Just
sure.
a
And I ask,
cloth.
guys, and I ask for vulnerability.
Oh my God.
Well,
to a generation of people. I'm sorry.
But honestly, it was great. Like from that meeting, we were already we were heading into production, and it was like we had to say please come join us, but also not so fast. Like join us after we're almost done making the whole season. So we knew that it was it had to sting. But your enthusiasm and your passion for this character and for this project, just it gave us buoyancy. As we're with that first season, we were drowning. We were writing so many scripts, we were rewriting, we were directing a ton. It was first season making a new TV show and just micromanaging moments. And we would get on the phone often before you came to Atlanta to shoot that, just talking about what was going to come, when you were going to see a script, and we're writing as fast as we can. It's 3 a.m. But just it's nice having that person there who is I love this character and I can't wait to step into this, because that's how we approached it. We loved this this material so much. And we viewed the Karate Kid as hallowed material that we were allowed to hold. We talk about they gave us the Fabergé egg. All right, let's try not to drop it. And it's nice that everybody that came that first season into it, who was re-stepping into roles, you, Billy, Ralph, everybody, all the kids felt that there was something that don't mess up here. And everyone really brought something to elevate what we wrote on the page.
And it hasn't changed.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, it hasn't changed.
That's why season 5, which we've been watching and we've been editing, and
Oh my God, I can't wait.
I'll just say, it's another one of these seasons where why is it working? Because a lot of people care.
Yeah.
It's like usually we maybe even don't have to care at this stage. You care like a little bit less and still get by. But we can't. That's not how we operate. And you guys and Ralph are always demanding, in a good way. In making sure that what is this season about? And you could be checking out. You could be like some other actors. I think season 5 they're thinking about other things. Like everybody knows this part is. I mean, for you, these are career defining roles, and you want to do it right. And especially as like the show goes on, you want to keep it going and make sure like wherever the show goes, it lands in a good place. And it's the magic of just people giving a shit.
Well, it's really interesting how you don't really know in our industry. You don't really know how things are going to turn out. It's always such a surprise, despite how much work and love you have for a genre. I can make a Western, and it just doesn't work because it doesn't move fast enough for kids. It just plainly doesn't do it. The scene I said to you about that I screamed, I said, who wrote this scene, right? And you screamed over the thing, some guy from Canada. Do you remember that?
Yes. Oh, I remember it.
There was a big fight I got into Mary about that. Very same day, she said, how can you abuse everybody on the set? And then we all had dinner, and you said, nobody in the business, if they're not in the business, they don't understand that we have these emotions, and it's okay to make them public, how we feel. So why I'm bringing this up is that scene was the scene they chose today to show on the Mario Lopez thing.
That's amazing.
So I said, unbelievable. I said, here's that scene where I'm having with Billy, and Billy and I all weekend were trying to rewrite it.
You're trying to connect to it.
We were trying to connect to it, and we kept rewriting it independently. And then the day on Monday, I was having such a hard time with the scene, and there it is. The other end of the spectrum. I watched it today on a big screen in the studio there, and it was great.
It's a great scene.
I remember
It was a great
I'll
scene.
just say this because some people like hear these things and they're like, oh my God, like what does it mean? Like what scene was that? And the truth is, you and Ralph and Billy, we listen to your thoughts, when it comes to these characters. That wasn't the first time, that you've come to us with the scene. Ralph, Billy, all the time, throughout the thing, throughout the show, will come to us with an issue here. I don't get this, or I don't see this. And sometimes it's a thing of like, you know what, you're right. We didn't see it that way, and we've made those changes. And then other times we're like, trust us, like this is, it may not feel natural, but it will work because of X, Y, Z. And that's been the whole process. The whole way through is that level of trust.
Well, we work so fast. Like this is a show that we have a lot of real heavy scenes on top of a scene that's not too heavy, on top of a scene that's all stunts, on top of a scene that we should have shot last week, but we have to cram it into the end of this day. And that's just because we pack so much into the show. So that's not the first time that we've had. You and I have danced before on set in terms of it's 4 a.m. and it's a Saturday and we're shooting a scene from an episode that's that was from 5 episodes earlier, and we're trying to remind each other what came before and after and why this makes sense and why we need your eyes to look that way, and it doesn't feel natural, and that's and I think that we're always editing in our heads and we're always saying it's because of something that isn't present in this scene and it's feeling weird, but we hear the music, we hear the strings, we hear the trombones,
we know the flashbacks from the original,
and
which I think in that scene
but that's what makes it
you could see the flashbacks, and I never saw, I don't know why I don't remember seeing that, but it really worked with the flashbacks and the look.
Yeah.
And the powerful thing in that scene, you say it does matter whether you win or lose.
I'll just say the scene we're talking about is a scene at the All Valley tournament where Kreese and Johnny encounter each other in the hallway, and Kreese is trying to make things better and apologizing for what happened with Terry back at the old dojo, and Johnny wants nothing to do with this guy right now, and Kreese is kind of drawing into the past, and they end up Johnny ends up kind of going to this place where he's talking about like the last time they were in this arena for a tournament and what happened to Johnny, and it's basically blaming Kreese in a moment in one sentence for everything that's ever happened to him. And in the moment, you guys have been through 4 seasons together, and you're feeling like we've been through so much. Why are we going back to to the roots at this moment? And from a writing, directing, producing standpoint, we're envisioning what that flashback was. We're like, we're in this space. It's hallowed space. It's returning to the place where the blood stain is still on the ground somewhere. Where Johnny, where Kreese wiped Johnny's blood off his nose. And we're feeling that, but it's not on the page. In the page, it feels like, okay, we're being asked to like get sucked through this time warp and go to this place. So we understand the disconnect, and that's what's fun about it to us, because you care. Like, you're not just saying the words. Like, you're trying to say like, I want to make this be what it needs to be, and perhaps there was something missing on the page that day to make that work.
I just like looking at that. What that scene does is it makes me look at Marty, Kreese in the first movie, and understand what's going through his psyche there, and that he's saying finish him, do all this stuff, because he doesn't want this kid to turn out like a reject. Like he's nervous. Like he could see, like in his own mind, see what actually did end up happening to him.
Right.
Because, these little things that you talk about, like, wins and losses in high school. It's like, well, does it matter what college you go to? Well, no, but yes. I mean, like, it could shape your whole life. You could meet the person that you end up marrying or whatever, or it doesn't matter. And I think, for that character, he's like willing to do whatever it takes for him, and that's what that was. Not just, hey, let's hurt Daniel LaRusso in this moment.
Can we just admit that Bob Dearden, the writer of that episode,
he screwed up.
He blew it. Let's just be clear. I just
if I could have brought him to set at that moment for you to break in two, I would have.
Speaking of sorry, a lot of people.
Yeah, but the hell I went through that night trying to justify my behavior with Mary, who's not in our business, who just kept thinking while she was in Video Village that I was upsetting you guys.
It is the passion.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no way you guys can take anything. I mean, you have hidden compact guns.
Well, it's
you have fucking razor blades in your hair.
It's one thing if it's about the character and the dialogue. It's another thing if it's like if an actor has problems because they're late, or there's some sort of like huge ego thing, or it's a drug thing. I mean, those are the things where you don't want to deal with that. When it's an actor who has a problem with this script, well, then that's communication. And then it's just a thing of like there are those times though that as an actor, and especially when you have limited time, which we never do, that like actors have to trust a director, and just say like, okay, you know what, I'm going to read the lines, and do this and do it in the best way, and trust that when they edit it and all this is going to happen, that whatever vision they have works, because for whatever reason you weren't seeing it the way that it was, because Bob Dearden did a bad job.
That was a perfect start. I will say, like, that was a small hallway, not enough room to walk. We couldn't shoot out the door because there was garbage that you're going to see out there that doesn't make sense. We needed Billy to turn around on a certain line. The camera had to move and rack focus. Like, I don't know who was pulling focus that day, if we were having trouble with that on top of, anything. But it was like a perfect storm of just the staging, the blocking, the lines needing to be exactly where they were. And was such an emotional scene that we were real up there with you and real up there with him. So, like, had to read it. You really can't fake that. You have to connect to it.
You can't fake it. And we had a problem because we had said those lines before. They were lines we had said before in other episodes. Right. And that's all what we did all weekend, is try to figure out how to rewrite this, because,
Right. How do you replay antagonism without,
without being boring.
Right, yeah.
So, but everybody cares.
Yeah, we'll fire Bob.
We have never, from Jacob to Peyton, we have never met anybody who doesn't really care. You're 100% right about that. They're part of the trilogy, part of the classic, part of the phenomenon, and this is the Ed Sullivan Show. This is the show that the entire family gets around, and that's what I hear more than anything else, just like you.
Very true.
This family show and at autograph shows, all they talk about is the parent talks about how they got the kid to watch the movies because they were told to watch this TV series, Daddy, called Cobra Kai. You got to watch it. And then they watch it, and they switch off, and they get hooked.
What was it like for you guys watching the movie as kids?
Oh my God!
You know,
well, I was gonna say this, and there's this piece that I don't want to forget, by the way, because it's about the tournament scene, and so I'm gonna come back there. Hold that.
There's
so
so many pieces.
There's so many pieces.
Wait,
There's so many
okay,
people
hold on.
talking. You know, I feel like we have the cutout of the original John Kreese in our house. I feel like. Yeah. John Kreese is a part of our family because since I've been born, people have been coming up to us talking about John Kreese, and he's just I'm so grateful that the world gets to see the other layers of John Kreese that I feel like you guys are now writing, which is so beautiful because you get to see like he went through a lot of pain and trauma and PTSD, and that's why he wants to prepare people to never have to be killed like his peers in Vietnam.
That was the big thing for us was approaching John Kreese instead of being like, ooh, he's just bad.
Yes.
It was like, well, why is there a guy who's he made the choice to open a karate school and teach children. So like there's an agenda there, and he believes, and we've said this from the beginning, he believes that what he's teaching these kids is helpful for them. He believes that this is something that would be valuable to get by in this tough world because he had a really, really tough life, and you know, life shows no mercy to you and you show no mercy back, and that was just his life experience, and that what he felt is something that's valuable for kids. You know, as the show evolves and you know he starts to see the impact of his relationship with Johnny, and then starts to have this relationship with Tori and all these things, we're seeing, you know, in this later phase of life, him being able to reflect on some of his beliefs and the choices that he's made. Yeah. But you know, it's we've loved being able to, you know, with every character, we're like, why are they this way?
Why?
So that's the fun, like, for the three of us and for our amazing writing staff. We're all super fans. We're all people who loved the Karate Kid movies. So that all existed. Everything that we saw in those movies happened. And we're like, okay, well, why were these characters? Which is when Terry Silver came.
Yeah,
it's
why
like,
did a billionaire help open a karate studio?
It's interesting because I study acting at Sanford Meisner and Playhouse West, and the most important question that they teach you there is ask why with every single thing that you do. Yeah. Why are you blinking? Why is your nostril flaring? Why? And that's why I love that what you guys are doing with this show, because it's like I feel like now it's giving people the opportunity to go, oh, maybe this guy was mean because, like you said, like maybe something happened during the day. He's not really an asshole. Maybe it was just a bad moment. And, you know, just to answer your question, I think he's such a strong human being, and it gave us confidence as children. You know, I remember that one time we were walking Walter Reed and those kids were bullying the other kid. Yeah. And it was unconscious, right? But we just saw it, and I feel like because of who he is as this character we've grown up with, that like we like had this instinct to go protect that kid that was being bullied, and we literally got into a fight with these kids because they were picking on that kid, and the kid was about to swing at my brother, and I picked my bike up and I put it in between them. It was just like this natural instinct. Wow. And then they went away. Do you remember that?
Yes.
It was. I mean, we strike first, I guess, right? But like same thing. I mean, I'm so proud of him. I'm also proud of like Ralph and Billy. I've known them for over the years, and they're always on the phone, like you said, talking about the legacy of all this stuff. And it's amazing to see. I mean, I'll come back to that. Like it does all ties into, like, it's funny how many conversations I've had with my dad. Like he'll read the scripts, he'll like send it to me, and like you're like, Jesse, like what, you know, this part here, like what do you think? And I'm every time like, Dad, the guys got you. You know they're gonna write, but like they have got you. They are. You guys correct me wrong. Like they are nerds, like me. I'm a nerd, and they write for what everybody wants to see. Eventually, in time.
We see Marty's scripts. There's like the Unabombers scribbling over each page, and I'm like, like what is it? But like, you know, it's always just like trying to. I know what it is.
That's it. I'm the Unabomber.
No, but I know that it's Marty, you know, back, you know, looking at it, thinking about the words,
getting sucked back into it.
Yeah,
saying,
you're thinking about, you know, your instrument and how it comes out, you know, and trying to, you know, and before every scene, there's usually little tweaks that we make.
Yeah, and you're always prepared. That's it. Like you come in and when you see the scribbles of a madman, you end up when you see that much on the page, clearly you've been prepping. Like, that's the thing, you've been thinking about it, which is you're asking all those questions. You're thinking about every line and trying to make sure that you're saying those lines in a genuine way, in a way that feels honest. So like when we see that, we're joking right now about all that stuff, but like it
goes to the care.
It goes to you caring a lot about this and making sure that you're thinking this through. And then you'll come to set and you'll challenge us on some things, and we're like, you know what, he's right about that, and we'll make adjustments. Or there's sometimes where we're like, we explain where we're coming from, and then usually on those you're like, oh, I see it now. I hadn't been thinking about it that way, but now I get it. And then there's other times where it's like, okay, we don't have a lot of time, and just trust us on this one.
Yeah. Or it's we have thought the same. Like, you're connecting so much to this, and you're saying, oh, this is a great moment where I should dig into this part of this relationship with this character, and we'll say, yeah, but we're doing that 2 episodes from now, and you haven't seen that script yet. So like, it's like this is the Bible for now, but there's like a New Testament coming out like next week that's going to start answering even more questions.
I've talked to several of the other actors and they always say, because we're talking about challenges, the All Valley sequence in season 5, I heard as amazing as it was also like incredibly grueling, right? I mean, I remember he kept calling me like, we're standing around for 16 hours. Yeah. My feet are killing me. Yeah. I mean, it was just like, it was
season 4.
Season 4.
Sorry, season 4. How grueling that whole part of season 4 was, the All Valley, and like as amazing as it was also incredibly difficult. I mean, there was so much going on.
The All Valley was like a giant stage production because you had our entire cast in one set. I mean, like literally, it's a giant lit set. For the first time in 40 episodes of the show, we lit the whole thing. We put these giant balloons up in the sky of this this arena, and we had crowd there some days we didn't, but it didn't matter because you had so much so many people that had to be there, and there were times when it's the intensity of Kreese has to tell Tori that she can go in there and fight her own fight, and then you have, like you said, like 16 hours of like you're a background actor and you have to stand there but be in character the whole time because the camera needs to move around 400 times.
What scene are you in?
And
all of them.
Yes, exactly.
And it was, I mean, you should have seen the call sheets on those days. I mean, they were like 17 pages long, and it was beautiful because you have the whole show. Everyone from the show is right there, and how much work you have, and I was running around like a chicken with its head cut off in terms of the shot list of what we needed to commit to camera. But it was so fun because it wasn't like, okay, we're in this room and then we're going over to that room later and we're going over here and I'm going to see these 2 people. It's like a buffet of of everything that you love in one place for like 12 straight days. So it was kind of stepping into its own little mini movie within our universe.
Yeah, well, speaking of the All Valley tournament, can I bring up something?
Sure.
Okay, so the scene that was almost probably the most impactful scene that I've seen thus far, I mean, there's so many, but was when Robbie, it makes me emotional crying because it's so impactful for people, when Robbie showed remorse for punching, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the character's name.
Kenny.
Yeah.
When he punched him because he realized, oh my God, like I became the bully.
Went too far.
I went too far, and then he went back to the dojo and saw Johnny, and felt remorse for what he did, because I think people need to see that.
Well, Robbie is one of those characters that people have been wanting Robbie and Johnny to hug for a very long time. That's something that you felt from season 1.
Yeah.
You felt like this is, you love Johnny, and so there were times where you disliked Robbie just because you're on the Johnny train, but like you sometimes forget like Johnny was not a good father at all in there, and Robbie is justified to have anger and frustration and make childish choices in terms of his father at times. But we were building, over the course of these seasons to, bringing them to a place where it felt honest that they've come over the hump. He's walking through Johnny's shoes by being a mentor of his own, being a sensei in a sense to a student, younger than him, and knew and was able to understand his father in a different kind of way. I know, Hayden, you were about to say something.
Well, I was going to say that it's so a big theme on the show is the father, sons, mentor, student, and but on this show you really get to explore the dysfunctional relationships and how they change over time. And so Johnny and Robbie have a dysfunctional relationship, and Kreese and Johnny it's not his father, or well, who knows? Maybe I'm see how the show goes. But it's certainly a father figure.
We may need that in season 12.
Yeah.
I'm his father.
Well, I definitely see that.
But like that's the thing is like it's it's learning how to forgive a parent who has there's something wrong there, like they both had I remember when we were looking at the script, it was like the perfect thing of Johnny being like, don't blame yourself, blame me. It's like, I'm sick of blaming you. It was like the perfect mesh. But I think that's there you see Johnny and his son, but then Johnny and Kreese, they haven't had that yet, like that's what's like there, and you feel that there's the from on the Kreese side the sense of like he would like that, but on the Johnny side you have like there's so much baggage and there's so much things that have gone on that it's like, can that ever happen, and should it happen? So like some parents, it's like, you know what, you don't want to see that person again, and so there's a lot of just built in, I think, on our show that like you're kind of rooting for characters to get over the like whether it's Johnny and Daniel and their rivalry, or it's like I think for Kreese, it's clear that like Johnny is that thing that he wants. So it's
I think one thing that we could say about we have a show that, because so many people watch it, people of all kinds watch our show. It doesn't matter like where you come from, how old you are, what your background is, your political beliefs, any of that stuff. People of all kinds really connect with the show, and the thing that we see that's common amongst everybody is audience members they want the characters to just get along. And I think it's a weird thing about like we live in a society where people like are constantly at odds and fighting over things, and there's just like heightened anger towards others in major ways. Yet when in their entertainment, they root for people to get along. And I think the messages of the show are showing people of all kinds coming together and finding common ground and working through their problems. Sometimes there's karate fights that aren't necessarily productive, and sometimes it's going through a struggle together and opening up to each other. Everyone's always saying to us, it's like, why can't they just talk to each other? It's like, yeah, look in the mirror, everybody. And that's sort of like what a big point of this show is.
It's amazing how with so many television shows that are out there right now, how Cobra Kai, this karate story with young kids, is like almost the most realistic about life, like just what everybody deals with on a daily basis. Because I've always said this, there's no explosions, there's no guns, there's no like massive visual effects, and it's just literally kids and their parents and the angst between teenagers, and we're all so captivated by that. I mean, it's magical.
It's so magical, and I feel like partially why it's also the comedy piece, because I remember watching it and I'm just like, are we really still talking about karate like 30 years later?
The
like,
rivalry.
Come on, John Kreese, get over it, right?
But it's like, that's their language. I think that's, like every show kind of has its, its thing that's important. Friday Night Lights had football, and this has karate, and that's the one, ticket that you have to buy to come to this universe. And if you buy that, everything boils down to the type of karate that you learn, and the type, but it doesn't go to the actual punches and kicks. It's the type of teacher you have. It's the type of father or mother or sensei, however you define that
and the
mentor.
lessons behind it,
and what they're telling you to do, and how they're telling you to help live your life, and why are they in it for their own redemption, or are they really in it for you? What have they been through that you don't know about? Like, it goes back to that big why. Like, every new character we introduce, it's, well, what makes this character interesting? What haven't we seen yet? What can this new character do within this group that's going to change the dynamic and introduce a new wrinkle and a new story to tell? How is that character going to ignite a spark with a character that's already there, for better or for worse, in terms of drawing them in to be an antagonist, a mentor, a lover, anything else? And it's so much fun. Yeah. It's so much fun.
I was just gonna say, there's it's also about your childhood. It's the under 18, because as soon as you become 18, you're an adult now, you're moving on to your parents. But like, this is this last period of time in their lives where they're going through experiences that they'll be carrying with them for the rest of their life, whether you like it or not, and that's the truth. Like, whether you win a tournament or not, you need to have some wins in your childhood, or else you're going to be dealing with an adulthood that is challenging. And whatever traumas or bad things you had in your childhood, whether that's you lost the karate fight or whatever that is, the parent or whatever, you're going to be carrying that baggage, like deeper into your life. And so it's these senseis are trying to navigate their kids to give them the best possible childhood so that like when they are no longer at the All Valley, under 18, it's like they can manage on their own. And, with Johnny and with all the characters and with Kreese, they're all dealing with the baggage of their past.
Well, I think you never stop learning. I think is one of the things on the show is where there are times where the kids are teaching the adults, and where the adults through the experience are learning lessons that maybe they could have learned 30 years ago had there been a different mentor or a different set of circumstances, or there was not a radio thrown down on a beach, or whatever it is. There's. The thing that's fun for us is making sure that everyone has something to learn on this show, even sometimes the voice of reasons.
And Miyagi said it in the movie. Lesson isn't just for karate. It's not just for tournament. Lessons for whole life. And that's we take that ethos into the show with us. How can we be presenting something that's not just winning this fight or this tournament?
What's to come that you can't really say.
Can't talk about anything.
Whatever you want to leave the show with.
Season 5 is...
You're going to come back. We're
Season
going to
5
drag
is-
you back
yeah.
here.
Look, season 5 is going to surprise a lot of people. I'll just say that. In terms of theories and what could happen, there's some obvious things that we've laid out at the end of season 4 that can start connecting some dots and saying I think this then this, but I'll be shocked if people really put the full picture together of what we did with season 5. It's probably our most untraditional season yet in terms of what we've set up versus what we're paying off. And it's explosive as usual, and it's a season we're really proud of.
And your dad, I'll just say, it's an amazing performance. Amazing performance.
Well,
Thank you.
He would like Jesse. He would, and because he knows I work in mental health, he would always just pick my brain about how to approach this character, and that's why I love what you guys are doing, because again, I think you're making an impact on such a psychological level to so many people with just being able to unpack a character to show the different dynamics, so that people can challenge themselves and say like, well, hey, have I ever been a bully? Or hey, did my words hurt someone? Or hey, maybe I need a mentor. Am I ever allowed to have a guide? What's my relationship like with my father? That's why I think it's so beautiful what you guys are doing.
And he's learned so much about himself through
Yeah.
Cobra Kai, going back and forth between then and now. I mean, it's true. It's unbelievable. The conversations we have, about life and his character. And I mean, it's amazing. And you guys have, helped bring that together. It's a beautiful thing.
I mean, between the show and this actual podcast, of all the different information that comes across, yesterday it came across with this coach who was a Pepperdine soccer coach for 29 years. And what he came up with, and I talked to him about, what do you think the coaching of Johnny Lawrence is like, and Ralph Macchio compared to John Kreese, and what you do teaching? And he's taken those kids right through championships left and right. And he was saying that to win is not just getting the trophy, which is, of course, what is the only thing on John Kreese's mind, but is the journey you went through to improve yourself. Say in soccer, you were always kicking with your toe. And then if you learn to perfect kicking with the side of your foot, and by the end of the season, you've mastered that, and you now score all the points for the team with the side of your foot. The things you've learned, and your running is better, and your breathing is better. The journey you've come on of self-improvement was what he felt that's the win.
The battles.
And if you're lucky enough to grab a trophy and win the season, it's gravy.
The reason that they exist is because what I was saying earlier, like kids do need wins, but they need real wins, and rather than get the trophy, it's just like an improvement, or just that knowing that you got better at something, or that you achieved something in a real way, I think is, those are the things that build the character and that you take with you in life, that, okay, I got better at this, so I can get better at anything. Listen, each sensei on the show has their own philosophy, but you do see that the students tend to get better, whichever sensei they have. It's just whether who wins at the end is
sometimes
is
they
a
get
little
worse
fate.
also in other ways. So
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like learning how to celebrate the journey as well as the victory. Whether you lost or won, like what did you learn in the victory? What did you learn in the loss? And I think that's what's really cool about the
Well,
sensei.
it's very zen. That's
Yeah.
what it's all about. I
Yeah,
think.
and I think. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, in tying with that, I wanted to say it earlier was I think it was incredibly brave of Ralph Macchio to take the seat that he did during season 1. With that whole shift of like the bad guy, good guy thing with Billy.
Yeah.
I mean, that was amazing to do that. I mean, obviously some people wouldn't want I know what's his name, Pedro Pascal, hates that he has to wear a helmet during The Mandalorian, right? He doesn't get to see his face, and it's almost like Ralph took a seat like that where he doesn't get to see that his face, and he was able to allow Billy to have that storyline, and then you guys brought it all back and changed it up again.
I always it's as TV series is it's like a sporting team. Like he was different. He played a different position in Karate Kid, and in this he's doing something different. But if you do this, you're going to open this whole world up. And Ralph's and what it did, not just gave him a hit show, but it allowed us to then delve into his character and give him these scenes with his character at a different age and going through different things in life that as an actor he loves.
Yeah, he was very smart about it. He's been approached a million times over the years to do Karate Kid related things, and nothing felt fresh to him, and nothing felt like I'm doing something different or I'm exploring something deep. And when we had those first conversations with him, we're like, this is the first time we're seeing Daniel LaRusso in a world where Mr. Miyagi has passed, and now he's an adult, and he should know everything, because adults, they know everything, right? But it's like, no, like you're always learning in life. And he had this mentor that was everyone's favorite mentor. Anyone who's ever watched The Karate Kid knows that Mr. Miyagi is an amazing character, and everyone wished that they had a Mr. Miyagi in their life. And Daniel had that Mr. Miyagi, and now he doesn't. At least he doesn't have him in his everyday life. But he has his lessons, and he has the memories, and he has to find his own way as well. And I think those were things.
And we have the flashbacks.
Yes, and we have the flashbacks. But
Always correct.
But I will say that Ralph understood, like when we said what we were doing, he didn't just have a knee-jerk reaction of like, no, I'm not the star of this in the way that I was, where I'm the Karate Kid. It's called Cobra Kai. Like, he got it. He was like, ooh, this is different that I'm being there. And it was important to him, and it was important to us from the beginning that he's not the antagonist of the show. He's a co-protagonist of the show. If you watch the first episode, you get really sucked into Johnny. Like, you're going to start that people talk about him as an antagonist on the show because they're so rooting for Johnny. But even if you rewatch that first episode, like, he's trying to be helpful. He's joking around with Johnny there.
He gives him thousands of dollars of free auto fixing
repair.
Of
course,
auto
right.
repair.
Thunderbird.
Yeah.
But from our audience perspective, it's just like it's like a knife.
It's
Johnny's
patronization.
side that's just
total
It's
patronization.
it's condescending. It's like, but like the character doesn't realize that. The character is like, I see this guy from my past. Like, I'll say this, like, for me and when we're writing that character, when I think about like the people who bullied me in high school, most of them, like, I have some form of social media interaction with, or I've run into over the years, and it's all water under the bridge, and it's all like, it's like almost like they were a character from the past in a weird way. And I think the way Daniel viewed Johnny, it's like, back at the time it was really horrible what went on between the two of them, but like he's moved on from that. And he's like, it's like, we were kids back then, and the first time he sees him, and it's like, almost like a memory of, even though this was a bad character from his past, there's something familiar about this guy, and it's kind of nice to see him because I've thought about him a lot over the years, kind of thing. And Ralph sort of embraced everything and has been amazing throughout, and it's been fun with every character each season, giving them different arcs, giving them different things to experience in their now adult lives. The amount of different types of scenes that these characters have had. There's certainly a lot of scenes that you would never think Sensei Kreese would have had when you watch the movies, that, he's in scenes where he's at a supermarket, talking to Daniel LaRusso's wife and eating an apple.
They talked about that in the show today too, as well as we watched. I love that Amanda scene. I love all the scenes with Amanda, but we watched that scene last night on the big screen with when Jesse and I were watching
He hadn't seen it really. You know, you guys had sent him the screeners beforehand, but he didn't really get a chance to see that one scene where he and Peyton
And the screen
and Thomas.
The screen in Jesse's house is as big as this.
And I wanted him to see that because he loves that moment, and he hadn't really seen, where he says, "Let her do whatever she wants," and he was like just sitting. I think we even posted it. He was sitting there just glued to the screen. It was just beautiful.
And it was really because she was here yesterday, and that's what we talked a lot about. And we talked about the instinctive thing that happens between an actor and an actress, or two actors or two actresses, when just the chemistry is so right, and immediately. The chemistry for she and I was so right. The chemistry with Amanda is so right. With Hawk, it's so right, and certainly more with Billy than with Ralph, is that everybody reads history between us. We don't have to say anything. We can just stare at each other, and people read history between us, And so that makes acting so much fun. And, I think you guys are lucky that all of us really enjoy participation in this. And you enjoy our participation, which is really a gas.
The water is very warm.
What?
No participation trophy.
I was going to say that.
No
we
trophies.
Just, we all work hard, and it's been a blast. And you're amazing, and I cannot wait for fans to watch season 5.
Season 5.
And because you have plenty of interest.
Thank you
It's
very
going to be
much.
amazing.
So
Well, one, I
excited.
can't thank you guys enough. I know we'll get you guys back.
Yes.
And again, thank you, John, Josh, and Hayden, and for being here on Kicking It with the Coves. It's such a pleasure to talking with you guys, and I can't wait to do more.
This has been awesome, and we can't wait to be back.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.